No one ever questioned Adama's beauty until the night screams echoed from the mansion. That night, the entire suburb of Victoria Gardens was shaking. The sound that came from Adama's grand compound was unlike anything anyone had heard before. It wasn't just a cry, it was a wail. So having that, people froze in their homes, their heart pounding with fear. It seems to come from deep within, as though the earth itself was groaning. The city, usually full of noises of cars and distant chatter, fell silent. The scream echoed across the street, bounced off the tall walls of Adama's mansion. Air rippled through the neighborhood, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. Adama was known far and wide for her beauty, her flawless skin, the way her eyes seemed to shine like the stars in the night, and a smile that made her stone wherever she went to. She had built an empire in the bustling city, a successful business beauty mogul. Adama's makeup line was the most sought after in the city. Women across the country moved miles just to sit her feet and learn her secrets, hoping to capture even a fraction of her beauty. Her elaborate mansion stood tall in the heart of the city, with lush gardens, sparkling fountains, and high gates that kept the world at a respectful distance. Adama lived in luxury. Inside her place was decorated with an expensive art, soft velvet couches, and marble floors that gleamed in the sunlight. And it seemed perfect. She had everything she could ever want. Although Adama lived in the city now, she had not always been surrounded by wealth and admiration. She had grown up in a small village called Umozulu, where life was simple and people knew their roots. It was there that Adama first learned about beauty. Her grandmother, Mama Kechi, had been a healer, a woman who knew the power of the earth. Mama Kechi had passed down the knowledge of herbs and ancient secrets, whispering to Adama as a child, "Beauty is not just what you see." Mama Kechi would say, "It is power, power over others, but you must be willing to pay the price." Adama remembered those words well. As she grew older, she became consumed with the fear of losing her beauty. She could not bear the thought of wrinkles, making her smooth skin or her hair thinning like that of the older women in the village. She watched how the older women aged, how their once vibrant laughter became tiresome and their proud features faded into the shadows of their past. She swore that this fate would never be hers. So while the other women of Umozulu danced in the moonlight or spent time at the river, Adama stood inside practicing the forbidden rituals her grandmother had once hinted at. When she moved to the city, Adama quickly realized that beauty was a currency. In the crowded streets and glittering malls, beauty was power, and beauty could get you anything you wanted. But she knew that one day her beauty will fade. She will grow and no longer use her beauty to her advantage. She started her makeup line, using her grandmother's secret herb as the foundation of her product. Word spread fast. The makeup just didn't enhance a woman's look. It transformed them. Skin glowed, wrinkles disappeared, and eyes sparkled with a new light. Adama's fame grew from each passing day. Her face appeared on billboards, in magazines, and all the screens everywhere in the city. People adored her, especially men. They all cherished her beauty, hanging on her every word. Some would send her expensive gifts, while others would do anything just to be close to her. Her influence was unmatched. Many powerful men wanted Adama's attention, hoping to be with her because they believed that she could bring them luck, success, or even a bit of her magic. With her beauty came great power, and Adama knew how to use that power to her own advantage. Other young women looked up to her. They wanted to be like her. They would gather outside her makeup studio, hoping for a glimpse of her radiant beauty or even a kind word. Many signed up for her makeup lessons, willing to pay sums of money just to learn the secret behind her flawless skin and the makeup that made her so alluring. Adama's word grew even more. As she did her reputation, her life seemed perfect on the outside, a fairy tale of success and beauty. Every evening, Adama would lock herself in one of her grand rooms. The walls painted a deep red, were covered in mirrors, and air was thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and oil. It was there, under the soft glow of the golden lamps, that Adama performed her nightly rituals. Inside her private chambers, far away from the eyes of her admirers, she mixed ingredients. They were never meant to be touched by human hands. One by one, women came to learn from Adama. The beautiful ones went missing. Some of their memories were clouded, their spirits weakened, but no one could explain why. They just knew that after visiting Adama, they felt different, like a part of them has been taken away. Then came Ukamaka, a young lady who wanted to train as a makeup artist. Before she went, she prayed to God to protect her and trusted God completely. When she finally decided to take lessons for a month at Adama's studio, Ukamaka walked in with the hope in her heart, but as soon as she stepped through the door, it was beautiful, with big mirrors and shiny makeup tables, but something didn't feel right. Ukamaka couldn't explain it, but her spirit told her something was wrong. It was as if cold wind had brushed past her, making her heart pace like she was out of place. The women waited in the studio, looked quiet and blank, as if they were really not there. Ukamaka watched them closely, praying silently in her heart. "Lord, show me what this feeling is," she whispered. "Help me understand." When Adama finally appeared, she looked just as beautiful as always. Her skin glowed in her eyes, sparkled, her smile was as sweet as honey. But Ukamaka noticed something strange in Adama's eyes, something that made her feel cold and inside. Adama greeted her warmly. "You must be Ukamaka," she said, with a soft, perfect voice. "I've heard about you, how you want to grow your makeup business." Yes, Ukamaka smiled politely. But deep down, she felt the same way. Cold inside her heart. She nodded, but the words didn't come out easily. "Come, let me show you how it's done," Adama said, guiding Ukamaka to a chair. As she began to talk about her makeup techniques, something inside Ukamaka was beginning to stir. Her mind felt light throughout cloudy, and she didn't like the feeling at all. She began to pray again, asking for strength. As Adama continued to speak, Ukamaka felt something dark in the air. It was as if there was an invisible force in the room, something that wanted to pull her in. But Ukamaka's faith was strong. She could feel God's protection around her, even in that cold place. Adama suddenly stopped speaking and looked at Ukamaka slowly. Her smile faded for a moment, and her eyes seemed to search Ukamaka's soul. "You are different," Adama said softly, almost in a whisper. Oh, Ukamaka's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked. She already knew that Adama could sense her strength. Adama smiled again, but this time it wasn't the warm smile from before. It was something else. "I have seen so many women come to meet me, but you are not like the others." Ukamaka felt a chill run down her spine. She prayed even harder in her heart, steady with faith. Adama explained most of her product and displayed a plan on how the lesson will go. From the following day, Ukamaka said nothing more. She stood up, thanked Adama politely, walked out of the studio. Her heart was pounding, but her faith was stronger. She knew something was deeply wrong with Adama, but she didn't fully understand it yet. And as she left the studio and stepped into the bright city street, Ukamaka felt a weight lift off her shoulder. She knew she had just been in the presence of something evil, but God has protected her. Ukamaka kept attending her lessons at Adama's studio, but something had changed. Adama no longer seemed happy to have Ukamaka around. In fact, she looked uncomfortable whenever Ukamaka walked through the door. Most of the time, Adama sent one of her assistants to help Ukamaka, avoiding her as much as possible. At first, Ukamaka tried to be patient, but after a few days, she couldn't stay quiet anymore. She had paid a lot of money to be taught by Adama herself, not by some sort of assistant. Then it happened again. One afternoon, when Adama once again tried to send her assistant, Ukamaka calmly but firmly spoke up. "I didn't come here to be taught by someone else," she said. "I came to learn from you, Adama." Adama's eyes flashed with irritation, but she kept her sweet smile. "Of course," she said, dragging her feet as she walked over to Ukamaka. It was clear that she didn't want to hear her, but she couldn't refuse outrightly. Finally, Adama stood next to Ukamaka by the mirror. Ukamaka watched as she adjusted her hair and then glanced at Ukamaka without much interest. "We have no models today," Adama said, her voice soft but cold. "Oh, there is nothing we can practice on. You have to come back tomorrow." Ukamaka sat on the chair watching as Adama pretended to be busy, signing papers and smiling at other clients, clearly happy to have gotten rid of her for the day. Just as Ukamaka sat glued to her phone, the door swung open and in walked Ngozi, Ukamaka's friend. She had a bright smile on her face as she waved Ukamaka as she stepped inside the studio. "I called my friend Ngozi," Ukamaka said, her voice calm but firm. "We can practice on her." Adama's smile faltered for a split second, and a huge disappointment flashed across her face. She hadn't expected Ukamaka to find a solution so quickly. She had wanted to push her out for the day, but now with Ngozi standing in front of her, she had no choice but to continue the lesson. "Fine," Adama said, her voice tight as she forced a smile. "Let's begin." Ngozi sat down on the chair, excited to be part of the lesson. Adama started gathering her makeup tools, but before she could apply anything on Ngozi's face, Ukamaka quietly reached for each item. She closed her eyes and prayed over every of them. Every powder, every cream. Adama's eyes narrowed as she watched Ukamaka silently prayed, but she didn't say a word. She simply waited, but her smile becoming more strained with each passing moment. There was tension in the air that no one seemed to notice, but Ukamaka could feel it. Finally, when the makeup was done, when Ngozi looked in the mirror, she gasped in amazement. Her face looked flawless, almost like someone else. The makeup had transformed her. She smiled brightly and touched her cheeks. "I love it," Ngozi exclaimed. "I won't take this off until it fades itself." Ukamaka smiled, happy that her friend liked the result. As the lesson came to an end, Ukamaka and Ngozi gathered their things to leave. Adama, still wearing her tight smile, called out to Ukamaka as she walked towards the door. "Next time," Adama said, her voice sweet but with a strange approval, "you will be applying everything you have learned. I expect you to show me what you can do." The following morning, Ukamaka's phone rang. It was her friend. As she spoke on the phone, her voice trembled with fear. "Ukamaka," Ngozi whispered, "something strange happened last night." Ukamaka's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked, fearing the worst. "I can't remember much," Ngozi continued, her voice shaking. "It feels like a fog. It's covering my mind. I remember walking into my bedroom, but after all, it all became blurry. My head feels strange, and I've had nightmares." Ukamaka's voice was firm but gentle. "Please tell me about the nightmare," she asked. Ngozi hesitated, her breath heavy. "Though the phone, I see shadows, Ukamaka, dark figures chasing me through a thick forest, and that is the feeling. It's like something is pulling me into the darkness." Ukamaka clenched her jaw. She had had enough. "Ngozi, listen to me. You need to pray whatever is happening to you. We need to ask God for help. I think there is something evil in Adama's makeup." Ngozi's voice was barely a whisper. "But how can makeup do this to me?" "I don't know yet," Ukamaka said, her voice low but firm. "I am going to find out." After speaking with Ngozi on the phone, Ukamaka prayed quietly, asking for guidance as she prepared to attend her makeup class with Adama. When Ukamaka arrived, the studio was buzzing with clients, and her models were already seated, ready for her lesson. But today, something was different. Adama stood by her side, holding every makeup product herself. She made sure that Ukamaka didn't get to touch any of the items directly. Adama would hold each powder, each foundation, and each tube of makeup. Ukamaka would only collect with a brush. When it was time to apply them, Ukamaka found this strange, but tried not to let it bother her. She focused on her work, carefully applying the makeup to the model's face. But as she continued, the makeup didn't seem to blend properly. The colors looked wrong, and nothing was sitting on the skin like the way it should be. She could feel the eyes of the others, new students in the studio, watching her, whispering quietly among themselves. When Ukamaka was finally done, as she stepped back to see her work, she froze. The makeup was horrible. Her model looked worse than she had started. The foundation was patchy. The colors clashed and the whole face looked like something out of a nightmare. Ukamaka's heart sunk. She had done makeup for years before moving to this part of the city. She had worked on brides, parties and special events, and people had always loved her work. It wasn't like her to make such a terrible mistake. She couldn't understand what had gone wrong. Adama stood next to her, still holding the makeup in her hands, her smile tight and controlled. "Don't worry, Ukamaka," she said softly, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "There is always room to learn. I think you just forgot to use the concealer." Ukamaka stared at her, confused. But I did use the concealer, she said, her voice low. I used everything you handed to me. The model, who had been sitting patiently, now rushed to the bedroom, clearly upset. Ukamaka could hear the sound of water running. As the woman tried to scrub the makeup off her face, Ukamaka's mind raced. She had followed every step, used every product that Adama had given her, yet the results were worse than anything she had ever done. She turned to Adama. Her frustration filled the air. I don't understand what went wrong. I know I can do better than this. Let me try the makeup on myself to prove it. Adama's smile tightened even further as she shook her head. Oh no, Ukamaka. I'm afraid your time is up for today. I have other students to attend to and I can't stay any longer. But I don't need assistance, Ukamaka protested. I can sit by myself and practice on my own face. Just give me a few minutes. I will clean up after I'm done. Ukamaka sighed, shaking her head again. It is not like that, Ukamaka. The studio is very busy today. And I need to make sure that everything runs smoothly today. You can come back tomorrow and we'll continue then. Ukamaka felt a wave of frustration wash over her. But there was nothing more she could say. She could feel that Adama was pushing her away. On purpose, something wasn't right, but she didn't have the answers yet. She nodded slowly, packed up her things, her mind filled with questions as she walked out of the studio. As she left, she couldn't stop thinking about how wrong everything felt. How could her makeup have come out so badly and so horrible when she used everything exactly as Adama had instructed? Ukamaka had a nagging feeling that something much bigger was happening, but she didn't know what it was. All she knew was that she couldn't give up. She had to find the truth. This continued every day. Adama standing by her side, making sure she never touched the actual makeup, only the brushes. Every product, every item, Adama held herself. When Ukamaka finished the makeup on her model, her heart sunk. It was terrible, just as bad as the day before. The colors were wrong, the foundation was patchy, and the model's face looked like it was painted by someone else who never held a brush before. Adama smiled at her, that same tight smile that never reached her cheeks. Don't worry, Ukamaka, she said sweetly. You will get better. There's always room to learn. As she moved out to help other clients, Ukamaka decided to stay and watch other students. One by one, the other students also struggled. Their models looked terrible. Just like Ukamaka, no one could get it right. They went on for each day. Ukamaka came in. It was the same story. She would try her best, but her makeup would always turn out wrong, no matter how carefully she did. She followed Adama's instruction. Adama, on the other hand, would create perfection. In Ukamaka's final week, something unexpected happened. As Ukamaka was practicing on a new model's face, two women burst into the studio, their faces red with anger, stormed up to Adama, threw makeup products onto the table. Looked at this one, the woman shouted, pointing to her client whose face looked horrible, smeared and uneven. None of this works. Look at my client's face. It is ruined. Adama quickly put down the foundation she was holding for Ukamaka and rushed to the angry women. Her smile never faltered as she calmly looked at the upset client. Please don't worry, she said smoothly. Take this and wipe it off. She handed a makeup wipe to the woman, who quickly removed the disastrous makeup from her client's face. As Adama walked the client, anger faded with each stroke of Adama's brush. The client's face began to glow, transforming from something terrible into a vision of perfection. The once furious client gasped. With each passing second, wow, she whispered, her eyes wide in disbelief. Adama smiled with satisfaction. As she finished, this is how makeup is done. She stepped back to review the flawless skin she had just created. The once angry client looked stunned, her voice now soft. I'm sorry, Adama. Maybe makeup just isn't for me. I can't seem to get it right. Adama nodded, still smiling. Not everyone is meant for it. You will surely find something you are good at. But before Adama could bask in her victory, Ukamaka walked up to her, her face covered in makeup she had just applied on herself. Adama, Ukamaka said, her voice firm. Look at my face. Adama turned and froze. Ukamaka's makeup was even worse than it had been on the models. Her face looked like a clown, with bright colors smeared everywhere. The foundation cracked and uneven, but Ukamaka didn't care. "Take that off right now," Adama shouted, her voice suddenly sharp and full of panic. Her usual calm and sweet tone was gone. She looked at Ukamaka with wide, angry eyes. "You can't walk around looking like that. Take it off." "No," Ukamaka said, shaking her head. "Take it off," Adama was almost yelling now, her voice shaking as she tried to stay calm and composed, but something was slipping. The calm, beautiful Adama everyone knew was starting to crack. She looked desperate, her eyes darting around the room. Ukamaka refused. Without another word, she turned and ran away from the studio, her terrible makeup still on her face. Adama chased after her, her voice rising in her scream. "Come back here." Everyone in the studio was shocked. They had never seen Adama lose control. They had never seen Adama like this before. She was always calm, always perfect, but now she was acting like a mad woman. All because Ukamaka has refused to remove her makeup. The students and clients exchanged confused glances as they watched the two women run through the complex. Adama's usual grace and elegance were gone, replaced with frantic energy. She looked wild, shouting for Ukamaka to stop, but Ukamaka kept running. Outside in the busy street, people stared at Ukamaka as she ran. They were just looking at her. With her smeared makeup and wide eyes, she looked strange, like a clown running through the city. But Ukamaka didn't care. She wasn't embarrassed by the stares or whispers. Something inside her told her that this makeup, this terrible smell on her face, held the key to the truth. Adama lost Ukamaka in the crowd, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she stopped in the middle of the street, her perfect hair falling out of place. She looked around desperately, but Ukamaka was far gone. Meanwhile, Ukamaka walked through the street, ignoring the curious looks by passengers. She felt strange, but she wasn't scared. She knew she had to get home. She needed to figure out what was going on, and she wasn't going to stop until she did. When Ukamaka finally reached her house, she was exhausted and went to her room, still wearing the horrible makeup on her face. She didn't bother to take it off. Instead, she sat on the bed, her mind racing with questions. Suddenly, she found herself standing in the middle of a thick, dark forest. The air was cold, and the trees loomed tall and shady around her. The ground beneath her feet was tight, but as she looked down, her heart raced. She was walking on skeleton. Bones crunched under the shoes with each step she took, but she couldn't stop walking. The forest path ahead of her seemed clearly strange, like it used to be every day, but it was eerie and silent, except for her own breath and the crackle of bones beneath her. She walked on her legs, feeling heavy. As she was dragging her feet through the thick mud, suddenly a dark figure appeared in front of her. At first, the figure stood still, smiling as though it had just found a new prey. The smile was twisted, unnatural, and filled with wicked joy. But as Ukamaka continued walking, the figure's expression changed. Its smile faded into a snarl, and its eyes burned with anger. The figure let out a terrifying scream, its voice echoing through the dark forest. "Who are you?" it demanded, trying to move closer, its long, sharp nails reaching out to torture Ukamaka. But something strange happened. The figure couldn't reach her. It scratched the claw at the air, trying to rip off Ukamaka's skin. But every time it came close, it seemed to be stopped by an invisible force. "Who are you?" the figure screamed again, frustrated that he couldn't torture her. It wailed and thrusted in the air, but Ukamaka kept walking, her heart racing with fear. She whispered a prayer under her breath, knowing that God was with her in this very dark place. The figure's cries grew louder and angrier as Ukamaka walked away, leaving it wailing behind her. She continued walking on the path. She felt her feet was growing heavier with each moment and each step she took. It was as if something was trying to pull her back, making it harder for her to move. But she didn't stop. She kept going, even as her legs dragged along the forest floor. As Ukamaka walked further into the forest, she noticed pieces of meat hanging from the branches of the tree. They were large and bloody, like they have been there for ages. For some terrible purpose, the sight made Ukamaka's stomach churn. But she knew she had to keep going. The waves behind her even grew louder, and it felt like a crowd of voices were screaming, echoing through the dark trees. Ukamaka closed her eyes and prayed over each branch she passed, whispering softly in Jesus' name. As she prayed, something incredible began to happen. The meat started to burn. Flames flickered at first, small and weak, but then they grew stronger, spreading across the branches. The fire roared to life, burning the trees and everything hanging from there. The forest around Ukamaka was now ablaze, the flames licking at the darkest, lighting up the once shadow wood. And then Ukamaka started to run away from the fire, but some dark figure had screamed at her, was now caught in the flame, screaming and screeching his body, twisted and burned, and it reached out for her last time, grabbing Ukamaka by the legs, pulling her back into the fire. She felt trapped, her heart rising as the heat got to her, the figure nail digging into her skin. As he dragged her closer to the flame, "Jesus, Jesus!" Ukamaka screamed, kicking the figures into the fire, her voice breaking with the fear and desperation. She felt the fire closing in. The figure's grip tightened around her legs as he let out a terrifying screeching howl. Suddenly, "My God!" jotted a weak, her heart racing, the sound of the scream still echoing in her ears. Ukamaka's body was drenched in sweat, her heart pounding against her chest. She sat up quickly, gasping for breath, her hand clutching her chest. "God, it was a dream," she whispered to herself, her voice shaking. She looked around the room, the familiar surroundings slowly her down, but the memories of the dark forest and the screaming figure stayed with her. That same night, a scream pierced the quiet of Victoria Gardens. It was the kind of scream that stayed with you, that crawls into your mind and refuses to leave. The fear was there, thick and unspoken. Everyone knew that something terrible had happened, but didn't want to believe it. But what Ukamaka didn't know was that the scream wasn't just a sound, it was connected to her dream. The figure she had seen in the fire, the ugly, terrifying figure, was real. It was burning, screaming as it was consumed by flames. The next day, Ukamaka made her way to Adama's studio. But when she arrived, Adama was late. The students stood around waiting for her, their faces full of curiosity and impatience. When Adama finally arrived, everyone turned to look at her. She was dressed strangely today, her face covered with a hijab and large sunglasses that hid most of her features. As she watched the Dumba walking, something about her seemed off. As Adama passed by, a strange foul smell filled the air. It was sharp and sour, like rotten meat or something worse. The students covered their noses, their faces twisted in disgust. "What is this foul smell?" one of the students asked, her voice more foul than ever. As she closed her nose, it smelled like a dead animal. Everyone looked at each other, and then their eyes slowly turned to Adama, who ignored the whispers and continued walking into her room. She opened her makeup bag, acting as if nothing was wrong. "Who is going to be first today?" she asked, her voice calm but distant. But no one moved. The smell was so strong, so terrible that no one wanted to hear her. Even Ukamaka felt a sense of wheeze. Something was very, very wrong. And now the other students could feel it too. One by one, they started to gather their things, walking out of the studio, unable to stand the horrifying stench any longer. Adama's eyes flashed with frustration, but she said nothing as her student left. Even Ukamaka decided to leave. But as Ukamaka walked away from the studio, Adama grabbed her arms. "I know what you did, and you will pay for that." Ukamaka didn't know what Adama was talking about. She simply pushed Adama's tight grip off her arm. Weeks passed as Adama's studio remained closed, the once lively place where women flock to learn the art of beauty has become silent. The shutters way down, the doors locked, and no one has seen Adama. For what felt like an eternity, people whispered about her disappearance. It was unlike her, but no one dared to ask many questions. There was something unsettling in the air, something that no one wanted to talk about. But Ukamaka couldn't shake that feeling that something had been unfinished. She had to go to Adama's mansion. She had to find out what was going on. After asking and making a few calls, Ukamaka finally managed to get Adama's address. The mansion wasn't far from her home, but it felt like it was in a weird way. As she approached the house, Ukamaka felt a strange sense of dread, as if the air around her was heavier, as if the air around her was darker. The grand gates were closed, the house quiet, but Ukamaka could feel something pulling her closer, something dark and powerful. Finally, Ukamaka pushed the gate open and walked up to the long driveway. The mansion loomed ahead of her, its windows dark-lined eyes watching her approach. When Ukamaka reached the door, she hesitated for a moment, but before she could knock, the door creaked open on its own, as if it had been waiting for her. She stepped inside and her heart was racing, her prayers steady in her mind. The inside of the mansion was eerie quiet, but the smell, that awful smell, was back. It was stronger now, filling the air with the scent of decay. Ukamaka covered her nose, trying not to gag, but she pressed forward. She followed the smell, walked deeper into the house, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Finally, Ukamaka reached the large room. At the end of the hallway, the door was slightly open, and the smell was strongest here. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, her eyes widening in shock at what she saw. The room was dimly lit by candles. They were flickering flames, casting long shadows on the wall. In the center of the room stood Adama, but she looked nothing like the woman who Ukamaka had once known. Her face was pale and old, her eyes sulking, and her wound-perfect skin was cracked and peeling, like old paint falling off a wall. She no longer wore her flawless makeup or her elegant clothes. Instead, she stood there in tattered rags. Her hands were shaking, and she held a small black mortar and pestle, crushing non-stop. As Ukamaka stepped closer, Adama's head snapped up, eyes wide with fear and rage. "You, Adama," her voice, "you have been trying to ruin me, haven't you?" Oh, Ukamaka shook her head. "No, Adama, I've been trying to understand. What is it that you have done?" Adama let out a bitter laugh, the sound twisted with pains. "You wouldn't understand my beauty. My power, it was never mine. I had to take it to steal it from others." Ukamaka's eyes widened. "Steal from who?" Adama's face contorted with anger. She looked down at the black mortar in her hand, her grip tightening around it. I took it from the women who disappeared." The figures in Ukamaka's dream wasn't just part of her nightmare. It was a spirit, a creature that Adama had summoned through her mirror, through chants and ritual, passed down by her grandmother, Mama Kichi. Mama Kichi had always known the power of beauty and the magic of the old days, but while she had used the herbs and roots to heal and protect, she had never crossed the line into darkness. Adama, however, had gone further than her grandmother ever did. She had learned how to take beauty from others, beautiful women who didn't have strong faith, women who disappeared after visiting her studio. These women never left Victoria Gardens alive. Through the mirror in her private room, Adama would call upon the spirit, and if he go from the fire, would bring her whatever she needed. The dry, lifeless skin of the women who had fallen victims to her makeup, the women who had disappeared, wearing just forgotten souls. They had been sacrificed, their beauty stolen, their lives used to keep Adama's youth intact. Adama would take their skin, dry and shivered, and crushed it into fine powders. She would mix it with her makeup, blending it into the foundation, the blush, the powders that she used on her clients and herself. Some of the skin was burned to ashes, and these ashes became part of the powder she used, and only she can transform the looks. This was her secret beauty stolen from others, beauty that came with a price. But now everything was falling apart. The figures in the fire had been destroyed, and with it Adama's powder. She no longer had the spirit to protect her, no longer had the secret strain that kept her beauty alive. Ukamaka's heart raised as she understood what Adama was saying. "You took their beauty?" Adama nodded, tears streaming down her cracked cheeks. "It was the only way I was taught by my grandmother, but I went too far. I used the spirit to take what wasn't mine." She held up the mortar. "That is all that is left, but now they will come for me. Spirit want back what I took from them, and I can't stop them." Ukamaka's stomach churned as she looked at the water in Adama's hand, realizing that inside it was the crushed skin from the dried meat she saw in her dreams. The truth was far worse than she had ever imagined. The mansion creaked. They were alive with the weight of Adama's court and the dark powers she had summoned. Ukamaka could feel the restless spirit in the air, angry, demanding. what she had stolen. Ukamaka stood before Adama, her heart heavy with sadness. She could see the fear and regret in Adama's eyes, but she could also see the stubbornness. Adama, I'm not here to judge you, she said softly, but you have to confess. You have to let go of this darkness. If you confess and ask for forgiveness, you can be saved. If not, it will be too late. Adama's hand trembled, gripping the small mortar with crushed skin powder. And if you were the only thing that kept her alive. Her face was peeling and cracked, but the thought of losing everything, her reputations, her powers, the life that she had built, was even more threatening than the spirit that haunted her. No, Adama, she whispered, shaking her head, her eyes wide with desperation. I can't. Don't you see my name? My business, the men who love me, the cars and the money is all I have left. If I confess, I will lose everything. Her voice grew louder, almost hysterical. No one will want me. No one will love me. If you know what I have done, those things aren't real, Adama. They don't matter, but your soul does. You can still be free from this. Get out, she screamed, her voice shaking. Get out of my house. Ukamaka didn't argue. She knew that Adama had made her choice. As she turned to leave, she whispered a prayer under her breath, asking God to help Adama find peace. And even if she couldn't see it now, she walked out of the mansion, leaving Adama alone with her crumbling world. From that day on, Adama could feel the walls of her house closing it on her, as if the mansion itself was driving her mad. She needed to escape, needed a better place, something that fit her grand reputation. Her beauty empire was fallen, and the only thing she thought she could rely on, her charm over men, were slipping through her fingers. Desperate, Adama picked up her phone and called some of the powerful men who had once wrapped around her finger. She thought she could still control them, that they would help her like they always did. But this time something was different. She refused to let anyone come to her house, afraid that they would discover the terrible smell that plunged into her instead. She tried to meet them outside the fancy restaurant or hotel. Adama would bathe herself in strong perfume, hoping to cover up the sink. But no matter how much fragrance she had used, it never went away. It was the same rotten odor from the dry skin she had once crushed and used in her makeup, a reminder of her dark secret. As she met with the men hoping to charm them one more time, they wouldn't even look at her. The stench was unbearable. They wrinkled their noses and found excuses to leave. No one wanted to be near her. Even in the middle of a crowded restaurant, people would whisper and move away from her, their faces twisted in disgust. The stench followed her everywhere. A terrible cause she wouldn't escape. Adama returned to her mansion each night, the smell growing stronger, driving her deeper into madness. The grand house that once symbolized her power now felt like a prison. The famous beauty queen, the famous beauty mogul, was no longer known for her flawless skin or her perfect makeup. She was now known everywhere for the terrible smell that surrounded her. News reporters, bloggers, and social media exploded with the gossip. Rumors spread that it was her makeup that caused the smell, and everyone who owned her products quickly threw them away. Adama's beauty empire collapsed overnight. Weeks turned into months, and the longer she stayed in the mansion, the more her mind slipped away. She was losing herself to the very darkness she had created. One day, Adama could no longer take it. She left the mansion, roaming the street with no destination in mind. She no longer hid behind her hijab or sunglasses. She wandered through the city with her face bare, her once beautiful skin and now wrinkled and ruined, her hair wide, and the smell still followed her up. No one recognized that anymore. The once glamorous, powerful woman was now an old woman wandering the street. People passed by her, holding their noses and shaking their heads. Some whispered, "What happened to her? Where is her family?" But no one knew the truth. The downfall of Adama, the famous beauty mogul, became a short-lived sensation. It was a paper fire topic. Everyone talked about it for a while. And then, just as quickly as they moved on with their lives, Victoria Gardens went back to normal. But something had changed. The woman who once adored makeup avoided it. They whispered about the cause of Adama, afraid that if they wore any makeup, they too might end up smelling badly or grow old quickly like her. What they didn't know was that Adama hadn't aged overnight. Instead, she had used the beauty and life of other women to stay younger and flawless. Every wrinkle, every bit of youth she kept for herself had been stolen. Ukamaka couldn't tell anyone what had happened. Who would believe her if she had told them the truth about Adama, the darkness secrets she had uncovered? The haunting scream, the strange cursed beauty, none of it seemed real. If she had told anyone what she had seen, or rather what she had been through, they would think she was mad. How could she explain that Adama's beauty had come from something so evil, so twisted? No, Ukamaka had to keep the story to herself. She carried the weight of it in her heart, knowing that even if she spoke, no one would understand. The world would never believe that glamorous Adama had fallen because of dark rituals, stolen beauty and spirits seeking revenge. Ukamaka could only pray that the truth will never be needed again, and that the people of Victoria Gardens will remain safe from the darkness that they had once hidden behind Adama's perfect face.